exam yet. It is in the ASC office until tomorrow at 5. Don't show up at 5, they want to go home. So, you know, get there, at least allow yourself an hour to take it. It shouldn't take you more than an hour. So it should take you less than an hour. Make sure you're prepared. So, how many have not taken it yet? Okay, then that's as much as I'm going to say. I do want to say, because I did tell those that were here, there's some true and false, and then there are a couple of spots for your, it says explain the rationale. Basically, you can pick any of what you answered above, any of those statements, and explain why they were false. That's really about it. So, or you can even explain what would have made the statement true. Just something to explain why you answered it that way. So, yeah, I think that's it. Good luck. They did say they have calculators there. They don't have a bunch. They asked if I could have you guys spread out how many come at a time. I'm like, I really don't know how to do that. You know, they're going to show up when they have space in their schedule. She goes, well, that's true. So, but just try not to go like in a group of 12. You know, try to make that. They have a few calculators. They don't have them all. So if you have a calculator, maybe take it with you. Okay. So a couple of things on the schedule. Blackboard. Really bad time for that to happen. I don't know when there would have been a good time, except in the summer or over Christmas break, but it happened. And so, and even before that, some of the schedule I was going to change. So look at your announcements on there and make the changes. Because I got us on a late start of our nutrition guidelines, that is changed, bumped back, but now the specifics are on Blackboard. They're listed in the left column under nutrition guidelines. It gives you kind of the direction that Carly and I are hoping you take. If you take a different direction, just communicate with us that you are planning to take a different direction. But you should start working on that. But instead of the week after spring break, having your presentations and the nutrition research due this Friday, that is all bumped back. So look at that on Blackboard on how that works. I then also just said, okay, we'll just leave this discussion board up through the end of this week. So you have till Friday to finish this discussion board since you haven't been able to get on. And then I will post a new one for next week, okay? One day diet is also due on Friday as well, okay? So instead of today, it's like your dry run, okay? It's like a practice run. Just take one day, drop it into Choose My Plate, just so that you know, is your laptop gonna do what it says? Sometimes you need a different, what is it called? Is it a server? Is that, so Google, Safari,
Browser.
Firefox? What's it?
Browser.
Browser, thank you. So you might just need a different browser to do something. So, but figure that out. That's what this is for. But you turn it in and you can get points. So you're not just doing it for nothing. If you have extra credit stuff, send that to me. I'm going to ask today for somebody to help me grade all my 150 101 students. So I'm hoping to get your guys' grades caught up. So sorry about that. I thought I could do it all, and I can't. So then our movie that is on Monday and Tuesday, or Monday and Wednesday of 327, 329, that will take the place of your presentations. We'll just flip-flop those. So when we get back, we'll still have that one last lecture, the movie, and then the exam. And then on those later days, you will discuss your nutrition guidelines. It really is just a 10-minute informal. This is the direction we took. This is what we found. I'm really excited about this project. I hope you guys really jump on board. Find good research studies. Your book has websites for different areas. Kind of go into your textbook, look under the section that has whatever topic you are covering, see what research studies they have used, and then you know, kind of go to some of the websites, and then start with maybe with those research studies, and that can be your jumping board into some other studies that might be out there. Okay, and then you will reference. It will be set up in AMA, so your references just for your section will be right below there in order as they appear in your section. Okay. I think we'll just do it that way, that each section has its own references, because then trying to combine it and then trying to combine the references, I think would be too much. And that gets us up to our meal group's final prep day. So when we get to April, that's when we have our meal. But don't think, ooh, we have a whole month, so we don't need to talk about it till the work day. You should be discussing it that Friday before. We probably, and I'll probably just say, we won't meet as a class. You're going to use class time or use some time to meet with your group to discuss, okay, on Sunday when we take our meal, what is the cooking going to look like so that we can show up on time, okay? If the meal is at 7, that means you need to be here with the food before 7 so that it can be served at 7, okay? So that is part of the whole process, is being able to plan that. That is the trickiest part. So, you know, so be thinking ahead of time about that. I'm waiting on the money to come back. I've turned in the request. But I will work with those groups that go before we get the money. But it's really coming out of the lab fee that you guys pay. It's your money. And I give it back to you, and then your group goes and spends it on the snack and the meal. Okay? Make sure you keep your receipts, and at the end, you'll be turning those back into me with any change, and then I'll take the change and give it back to y'all. So. That's kind of how that works. Okay, thoughts, questions, comments up to this point? Are we good? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about protein. All right, so just like carbohydrates, protein has 4 calories per gram. So when you're figuring out if they give you grams that are in something, you multiply it by 4 to get there. If you look on that first page, figure 6.1 and 6.2 kind of show you how the protein is set up. There's carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen in there, and they are set up with 2 different groups. You have the amino group, and you have the acid group, okay? And then they're set up on the backbone of your carbons and your hydrogens together. All right, so that is the basic structure of protein. Why is it essential? And really, it's the breakdown of protein that makes it essential. It's having that nitrogen available, and also then the energy as it's broken apart. There are 20 different amino acids, okay? Some of those are essential. We'll get to that in a second, which means what? What does it mean if it's essential? Yeah, you have to intake it with your foods because your body doesn't create it. So, all right, so what are our recommendations? So the acceptable macronutrient distribution range. So something to think about here, this range has to be set above the RDA, okay? So that's kind of one of the rules that they set up, was that range has to be there. When you break down this, the average person will be at the lower end of this range, all right? And so you have that 10 to 35% of daily energy intake for adults. And we'll talk about on Wednesday kind of, you know, who would ease up toward that higher end. And what are some issues if you ease up toward that higher end? How can that affect some chronic illnesses or even how you're doing yourself? Are we turned on?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Forgot to check. And then the World Health Organization says 10 to 15% of total calories. And like I said, that's kind of where the average person, when you figure in, you know, the 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, which is what the RDA suggests for sedentary adults. When you do that, that actually comes out a little below that 10. Okay, so it is focusing at that lower end. Yeah, this one, 46 to 56 grams. This actually falls below the acceptable. If you're looking at a 2,500 calorie diet, this falls at like 9% of daily energy intake for, you know, I don't know, 150 to 160 pound guy, and which maybe most guys are above that, so then you have to look at that. And so that would go up some. But that falls down at about 9%. So it does fall below. So when I was doing the math, because then I kind of went in and was reworking some of the math in there, and it didn't make as much sense to me either. So during different life cycles, different amounts of protein are needed. And so you can see this is generally where most of us fall, then at 0.8. But then when you take in activity level and that, the protein will go up. Okay. And so in here, so the two charts, if you're looking at this, the first one is kilogram body weight, and then the second one they converted into pounds. But you know, most of the time in the science field, we're going to be looking at kilograms. Okay. Okay, so our amino acids, and if you, well, it's coming on the next chart. I guess we'll just talk about it. Essential, there are 9 that must be obtained from the food because they are not made by the body like the other 11 are. Okay, so the body can make it from fragments. We've talked about, you know, that when carbohydrates and fats and things are broken down, you have these fragments that can be used. So they can be created from those fragments in the body, so we don't have to make sure they're in the food that we eat. Okay, and then unused proteins are broken down, and the amino acids can be recycled. Okay. So table 6.1 gives a list of those. All right, and if I am correct, yeah, those are our branched chain isoleucine, leucine, and valine are our branched chain amino acids, which you've heard a lot about. This is what bodybuilders generally take in. They're really good at, you know, getting into the muscle, building muscle, and so that is why those are emphasized and that you need those. We'll get into, you know, kind of taking them separately or in taking them as food on Wednesday. But you can see the ones that our body makes is over there. Excuse me. And then the ones that have the double asterisk, they can, they sometimes might be essential. So there may be times if there's a limit in what the body has in order to create them, it may be that you need to intake them through your foods. All right. Now this is really interesting. The specific sequence that these proteins, when they're built, these amino acids are in a specific sequence. All right. This is where I sometimes have a problem when I hear scientists talk about, oh, well, I don't believe in God, I believe in facts, you know, I believe in this or that. These specific sequences and how things most of the time go right is a miracle in and of itself, okay? There are instances where things don't quite go right, and, you know, then somebody may have some different issues that they need to worry about. Sickle cell disease is one of those, where you have an amino acid that is out of order. All right, and but when I first got out of college, I worked at a medical lab up in Lansing, and I went in and in at an entry level, worked with some people, and immediately got bumped up to the pathology department. The man there was a physician's assistant in pathology, and he wanted to see if he could train somebody to do his job who had an undergrad degree in biology. And it was really, really cool until we realized one of my biggest triggers with my health issues was formaldehyde. And so everything came in formaldehyde. But, you know, working there, and the man I worked under, he was kind of one of those that believed in God because of his job. He may not have lived his life the best supporting that, but I remember him standing there, and I mean, we got everything in, and there were times I cried in my job. There were moments. But I got to see the whole human body come in. My job was to dissect different organs, skins. If somebody had had a miscarriage, you know, the results of that would come to us. And we would it was called gross description and dissection. I would describe what was in front of me, and then I would dissect it to send it to our histologist, who would put it on slides for our pathologist to look at. Very, very cool job. And it taught me a lot about the human body. And my boss taught me a lot about the human body. And I remember him saying he was holding a little baby, you know, fetus, fully formed. And, you know, it was a miscarriage. And I mean, even rough old man, not old, not much older than me, but not much older than I am right now. So, but older than I was at the time, and you know, he just had tears streaming down his face, and he said, I don't understand how people who work in this field can't see the miracle that's before them, and how this isn't coincidence. This is God's handiwork. Our bodies, how they work, the way different things are set up within the systems in order to protect us, and that most of the time, things go right is a miracle. So that phrase was from my boss when I was right out of college. And it really struck me then, and it made me have a higher appreciation. I wish I had written down all the different things, because he would just, when we were if we were working together, he would just start spouting all of this intelligent stuff about the way God created the body. Was a miracle, and he just would give me lists, and I don't have that. Probably Dr. Bradovich or, you know, Dr. Newhouse could go on about that, but just really, really interesting. All right, so I am going to, let's do this slide, and then I'll pop somewhere. One of the things, those of you who went to the talk that the lady who came and talked about vegetarianism, I wish I had videotaped that. I'm kicking myself. But she talked about that a lot of people say, well, how do you get enough protein? You know, and that's one of, I think, their biggest pet peeves, because we even actually talked about that, and you could kind of see their passion of, like, you get enough protein, you know, quit asking that. But, so here are some of the things that they talk about, and it's going to be different in my book, but if you look at the page, if you look at the page opposite table 6.2 or somewhere around there, in the section labeled, is there a difference between animal and plant protein? But further on, after it talks about nitrogen balance, we'll come back to that, by the way. It talks about the PDCAA scores for protein, and this is basically looking at the protein, how much it's digestible and that sort of thing. So in there, they've come up with that really the digestibility, animal foods, they say, can be digested the best. But when you look at legumes, it's not that much less, right? And I also, you'll hear that certain vegetables, if they are cooked to some extent, it breaks down the walls so that it can be more digestible. Okay? So your book, I'm gonna look at things that maybe a little bit different than your book on this. They're saying to really pay attention to essential amino acids. And I kind of went on to some sites of some people that I follow. And I have to tell you this, I do not follow all the same people who believe just like I believe. I follow some that have a little bit different philosophy. And I'd like to look at how they then talk about things from their different viewpoints. And a lot of them did kind of overlap in this area, that really vegetarians can get their protein without paying a whole lot of attention to the complementary proteins, and to make sure that in every meal or in every day they're getting them. That if they eat a variety of vegetables and fruits and grains, that they're going to get that. And that you don't have to spend so much time paying attention to that. Your book talks about it and talks about that for vegetarians. And if you go, you have to go back to, see what anyway, there's a page, I'll get you the page number in a minute, that you can go back to that talks about, page 59, that talks more about vegetarianism, okay? And so kind of that area, we'll look at this a little bit more in depth. But let me switch real quick to one of these websites here. I don't know. This one. Okay. So, vegetarians get asked all the time, where do you get your protein from? All right. So then they talk about that, the combining, that it's actually a myth. And really the American Heart Association has commented on that. So what are some reasons that they would tell us, that it might be better to get your proteins from a plant source? Some of the reasons are that you're going to get other health benefits as well from plants that you might not get from animals. I'm just going to have you kind of look through this real quick.